HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see my team won alone. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dance. Yeah. Dr. Bill, you know what he be talking about. Michael Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson. And you gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play, boy. You gon' learn today, how your team they play, how they play. We represent that swag, that MEAC. Yeah, let me say, what's up the Tennessee, stay. Tune into the HBCU Sports Lab with Dr. Bill, Michael Charles,
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Presented by Amber Slaughter, the project architect. Amber Slaughter, the project architect, where they handle the project planning, project development, project execution, and team management so you can run your business. Contact Amber Slaughter, the project architect. That's www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. That's www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. Welcome and thanks for joining us inside our studio lecture hall, the HBCU Sports Lab, for the only weekly sports talk radio show that is dedicated to exploring the sporting HBCU diaspora, including the marching sport with its unique HBCU cultural identity, the teams, the bands, coaches, athletic directors, commissioners, provost presidents, big rivalry matchups, classic games, homecoming events, and much, much more of the HBCU athletic aesthetics. As we emerge our lecture with sport business practices in the competitive sports industry, the show seeks to provide innovative, progressive, and informative dialogue about the week's HBCU sporting events, issues, and ideas from a fan's perspective. We review the Southwestern Athletic Conference, better known as the SWAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, better known as the MEAC, of the NCAA Division I, Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, SIAC, the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, the CIAA of the NCAA Division II, Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, GCAC of the NAIA, and independent programs, such as Tennessee State of the OVC at the Division I level, Hampton of the
Big South,
also of the Division I level, Langston of the Sooner Athletic Conference, along with Texas College, affiliate member of that conference, as well as Edward Waters as they transition from NAIA to NCAA Division II and membership in the SIAC. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, a.k.a. the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports. What'd you say, Charles? Welcome.
Yes.
Studios.
Yes, indeed.
You have some HBCU news of the day?
Got a lot of it. Let's start with the first things first.
Let's give it to them.
SWAC statement coming out today regarding the altercation last night between the Texas Southern ladies, Alabama State ladies. We'll start here. The Southwestern Athletic Conference has a zero tolerance policy regarding unsportsmanlike conduct. The conference office will review all relevant information and will take the appropriate action once the review is completed. So that came out today from the SWAC office. That was a release today from Andrew Roberts, Assistant Commissioner for Media in the SWAC.
Yeah, I had to get it out there. That was tough
to
see that what's going on. I like the fact that the SWAC got in front of it. Obviously, Texas Southern University VP of Intercollegiate Athletics, Kevin Granger, made a statement. Do you have his statement?
I do not have his statement.
I'll see if I can bring it up.
Let me see.
I think he did an excellent statement as well in regards to that. But I thought it was important, something like that, you get ahead of it as much as possible, just because it was tough. We've already seen that earlier this year with Kansas State and the rivalry, so we understand those things take place. But there's no place in athletics for that to happen. I just got the statement as Isaiah finds a way to get it done. Texas Southern Department of Athletics, quote, "We are deeply disappointed by the events which took place at the conclusion of Monday night's game," end quote, said Texas Southern Vice President for Intercollegiate Athletics, Kevin Granger. Quote, "The incident had overshadowed the efforts of our team's success on the court as they directly counter the expectations of sportsmanship which has been placed upon our student athletes by Texas Southern and the Southwestern Athletic Conference. The SWAC and both the universities are actively reviewing the events which took place last night in order to bring closure to this unfortunate incident," end quote. Thank you, Isaiah, for giving us an update there. I certainly think that's an example. Unfortunately, we've seen this a little bit a couple of times, SIAC, SWAC, in regards to what's going on, and you have to get in front of it, and we fully see that's taking place, so that's important for me. Anybody knows my show that I don't dwell on that kind of stuff for various purposes, but I wanted to get in front of that as well.
Sure.
As Texas Southern's in the backyard, and I didn't want people to think that we were not covering information. But with that said, what other items? You said you got quite a bit going on. What else you got?
Yeah, let's take a look at Sunday. It almost slipped past me, but Howard football, they made a coaching decision finally. Florida assistant.
They announced it when?
Sunday. And signing day is Wednesday.
I guess you got to get it as close as possible, but you're going to do it on Sunday. Why not Monday? I mean, Sunday, I mean, you want nobody to know about this. Right?
Apparently. That's why I said it almost slipped past me. So, and this comes from HBCU Game Day. Stephen Gaither looks like Howard.
HBCU Game Day.
Yeah, right.
Stephen Gaither going to get the scoop now.
Yes, indeed. Howard hired Florida tight ends coach Larry Scott to take over their program, as first reported by ESPN. Scott has never been a full-time head coach at the college level. However, he did lead Miami to a 4-1 record as an interim head coach in 2015. So Larry Scott, he will take over this Howard program now.
Anything you've heard about Larry Scott out of Florida? Any information you had other than what's in the report? Did you?
What I have seen, pretty much that he is a good recruiter in terms of what he's been able to do for Florida, but those are just
not that he doesn't deserve his opportunity. Not to say that he doesn't work out.
Sure,
but it's amazing to me how FBS coaches
get that label,
and they tend to be African Americans, blacks, whichever term you prefer.
Yeah, but
then it's secondary amazing to me how people glean that a recruiter, obviously he probably does some coaching in positions at least, can move from FBS level as a recruiter and then go to the FCS level with some level of success. Ultimately, obviously, Howard is hiring with the expectation that they can reset the program and get to highest of heights, including winning a conference championship and therefore opportunity to play in the Celebration Bowl, as we know it now. Right. The champions between the MEAC and SWAC. So it's interesting. But if you review some of the past case studies, it hasn't seemed to be a factor of showing that it works. Right. The other thing with Howard, it'd be interesting to see, are they going to commit?
Right, that's the big thing.
The resources necessary. Obviously, we did see Coach London before he left. They had upgrades to the facilities in terms of the locker room. Obviously, you're talking about one of the biggest brands, if not the biggest brand in HBCU.
Very much so, the Mecca.
Many people refer to it as the Mecca. They do have some history of championships in relatively recent past. So it'll be interesting. Can they kind of bump back to what London seemed to have building there? Coach London that did moved around before Prince took the job, and just things didn't work out really quick for him. Really quick. You couldn't even see in a lot of ways what he was able to do on the field, because off the field things took.
Yeah, in a lot of ways they did regress this past season. So.
No doubt about it. So it's an interesting hire. Great opportunity for the coach.
Yes, indeed.
We certainly will follow him, give him every opportunity to show that Howard Bison football program will be reckoned with.
Yes, indeed.
In the MEAC and across HBCU sports. So I'm intriguing about that in a lot of ways.
Very
what else do you have?
Let's take a look. The SWAC, they announced their 2020 preseason baseball
I saw it.
honors.
Good
and
job.
Let's take a look individually. Alabama State.
The ping of the bat.
The ping, 10 days away. We're 10 days away from. In fact, some programs have already started. Edward Waters, I think they had a weekend series this past weekend, but it's that time, baseball. Get all excited about baseball.
Yeah, you seem to know a little something about baseball.
Yeah, just a tad. But we take a look individually. The Alabama State Santiago Garcia and Jackson State's Nikhil Galatas were named the preseason player and pitcher of the year, respectively. Garcia was a key contributor to Alabama State Hornets last season as he ranked 4th in the league with 76 hits. Runs batted in, he had 60. He was tied for 4th with doubles. And defensively, he also ranked 3rd in fielding percentage, as well as 1st in putouts. Galatas had an impressive season last year for Jackson State as he ranked 7th in the conference in ERA, 4.13. He was 5th with opposing batting average of 237. He's 1st in innings pitched, and he was also 4th in total wins. So we take a look at the 2020 preseason all-SWAC baseball team. We mentioned the player of the year, Santiago Garcia from Alabama State, and preseason pitcher, Nikhil Galatas. But let's take a look at the first teamers. Catcher, Santiago Garcia from Alabama State, Nick Kreutzer from UAPB. Second base is Alex Martinez from Prairie View. Third base at the hot corner is Jalen Williams from Jackson State. Shortstop, Wesley Reyes from Jackson State. DH, Chris Prentice from Jackson State. Outfielder, Equan Smith from Jackson State. Outfielder, Brandon Rembert from Alcorn. Outfielder, Tyson Thompson from Texas Southern. And then the pitchers are Elijah Finney from Southern, Brian Delgado from Grambling, and Aaron Barkley from Mississippi Valley State. So those are your first teamers in terms of preseason SWAC baseball honors.
Great information. I'm ready to get some of this. I'm really intrigued about that matchup, HBCU Classic, I guess they're calling it, in Jackson, where you have MEAC teams playing off against some SWAC teams. I think it's North Carolina A&T, FAMU, Southern, and Jackson playing in the game. That should be exciting. That's big time. I wish that we see more of that in basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd like to see more of that.
That's going to be a good.
Let me get a shout out.
series.
Chuck Hunt gets our helmet sticker of the day. I know we're outside of football season, but signing day is right around us, so might as well give a helmet sticker to Chuck Hunt, checking in from Monroe, Louisiana. He's the first one to get up there on the board to check us out, so I want to give him much love. He said, I'm glad to be able to tune in live on my day off from work. Glad that you got the day off, and glad you decided to take some of that time and share it with us. We're going to see if we can bring you this news hot and heavy. Reggie Howe says, good day, gentlemen. Yes, good day. Reggie will like this. James Knox chimes in here and says, VUU at we. Women and men representing the CIAA well in NCAA Division II showcase last Thursday. Great comments, James. Yes, they're getting it done in CIAA. SIAC is playing some good basketball as well, but CIAA, boy, they have some of those top 25 ranked teams.
Yeah.
As Lincoln has surprised a lot of folks in a lot of ways. Michael Lee says, what's up? I love his avatar, I guess you call it there, with the late Kobe Bryant and his daughter as they go up in the sunset for basket there, slam dunk. That's pretty fascinating, seeing that. Lonnie Shaw is back with us. Yeah, keep listening, Shaw. We're going to see where them North Carolina A&T's, boy, where they are. The North Carolina schools, I will say, took down previously undefeated Norfolk State on the men's side.
Big.
One weekend, you go from 0 losses in the conference to 2, boy. You talking about coming back in the pack.
Right.
North Carolina A&T stays with just 1 loss in the conference, so they rise to the top. And North Carolina Central is tied with Norfolk State now because of that head-to-head matchup. And then let me make sure the series not dead. Let's talk about the women. Norfolk State Spartanettes, as they call in that arena there. They were also undefeated in conference play. Sitting at number 1 at the time. We'll see if that maintains that. Are they able to maintain, I would say. But North Carolina A&T Aggies got it done against Norfolk State. So Aggies just continue to do what they do, which in HBCU sports is called the W.
What a time to be an Aggie. What a time.
Michael Lee says, a couple of those that we talked about watching, Willie Alex Hines jumps in here. Good evening, gentlemen. Here to get my HBCU sports news. Appreciate that, Willie. We're going to give it to you. You got some more as we give shout-outs. People chime in. I'll be looking at your comments off and on, so if you got some information that you want to share or some questions you want to ask, we'll see if we can get that information for you, and hopefully we can answer them. But other than that, we appreciate you joining us, including, before I pass it back to you, have Todd Jackson checking us out as those are folks who are tuning in early to see what we got to say this week. So, Charles?
Hey, yeah, let's go get right into it. MEAC, they announced their men's basketball honors, and C.J. Kaiser of North Carolina Central, he's been tabbed the MEAC Player of the Week from the league office, and also Ronald Jackson from North Carolina A&T was the Defensive Player of the Week, while Tyrese Jenkins from Norfolk was the Rookie of the Week. Let's take a look at Mr. Kaiser, guard, 6'3", redshirt junior from Baltimore. He scored a career-high 23 points twice over the weekend en route to shooting while shooting 72% from the floor in a win over South Carolina State, where he won 9 of 12 from the floor. He also went for 23 points and 3 rebounds and 3 assists in the win over Norfolk State. In that game, he went 7 of 10 from the field. And again, 23 points along with deuces and rebounds, assists, and steal. Mr. Jackson from North Carolina A&T, 6'8", senior forward from Clay County, Florida, helped the Aggies take over first place in the conference with a strong performance on both ends of the court. Defensively, check this out, Doc. He averaged 11 rebounds, 2.5 steals, and 1.5 shots.
Ooh.
As A&T both knocked down.
I see you, Willie. I'm going to get that.
Yeah, knocked down Norfolk State and South Carolina State. He grabbed 15 defensive rebounds over the 2 games and also averaged 15.9 points per game over the weekend. Huge weekend for the North Carolina school.
Yeah, we're going to dig a little deeper in that, but before I do that, it is also track season, indoor track season, and A&T Aggies. As Willie said, I'm quite embarrassed that I caught this because I saw this all weekend, was checking it all out with some of those record times and first place, getting it done. Also talking about being an A&T Aggie. What about the top 10 ranked indoor track team? No doubt, anytime you rank top 10 in the nation, we're going to make sure you get a shout out right here.
I would say definitely North Carolina A&T freshman, Randolph Ross. He runs the world's fastest 400-meter, and that was this past weekend.
Pick him up, put him down.
Pick him up, put him down. The North Carolina A&T freshman ran a 45.44 in the 400 meters, which is the fastest time in the world this year thus far. Ross set the mark at the Texas Tech Invitational on Friday. The freshman has literally blazed onto the scene in the first month of the indoor season, running a 45.85. So, of course, he's the son of A&T track coach Dwayne Ross. So, he's come on to the scene nationally, fastest time in the world thus far.
Oh, that's pretty big when you talk about what's going on there. Any final news that you want to get out there?
Yeah, I mean, we had a good weekend, I think, in the SWAC as well in terms of looking at some games. We always take a look. Monday Night Massacre. And it happened again this past weekend where we had a team that we didn't expect to lose. They took an L with Texas Southern falling against Alabama State. So,
and they lost big.
They lost big. So.
24.
Yeah.
Let's get right into that in terms of that Monday matchup. You've often talked about those road games and the Monday matchup.
Yeah.
What do you always want to impress the people about the Monday matchup? Why is it more attuned to where you see some upsets from top teams after oftentimes a Saturday win, but the Monday seems to be the key one?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a preparation time or whatever the case might be, a lack of focus. Of course, sometimes you see the long road trips and the team just kind of doesn't have the legs under them on a Monday night for if it was a tough Saturday night game. But normally we see these Monday night weird things that happen in the SWAC where we'll see a team that we didn't expect to lose, they will lose. Or just something to that effect, just something weird on a Monday night, or a close game where you really weren't expecting a close game from a team that's lower in the standing. So it's just a weird phenomenon that happens in the SWAC.
We're going to get back a little more to the SWAC in those particular matchups so you can dig in a little bit. Alabama State and Texas Southern game, the one on Monday that they lost on the men's side. And obviously, we talked about Texas Southern women won big Jackson State continues to win. So we're going to get into some of those on the women's side. But before we do that, there's some Division II news that you want to get out there in terms of either the SIAC, CIAA, both Gulf Coast Athletic Conferences getting into major play. You see some teams really looking good, top 25 wise. Give us a mid-major report on both the women and men. Let's start with the women.
Yeah, let's take a look at the GCAC, and that's a conference, of course. It has Talladega, Philander Smith, Tougaloo, those type teams. But NAIA, but Russ College, they are really getting it done on the women's side. Russ College, the Bearcats, they are 7-0 in conference play, 18-2 overall, 9-game winning streak. So shout out to Coach Eric Jackson and his Bearcats. Kamisha Walker, she's came into the season all GCAC, and she has been a player of the week multiple occasions in the GCAC. So I can go home now. Shout out to the Russ College Bearcats.
You better get that out there. Mississippi native son over there. You want your card.
Yeah, I want to make sure I can always go back home. So
let me give you some of these scores while you're talking about the most recent scores over the weekend, if you would. Edward Waters was at Suno. Suno defeated Edward Waters 70-69. 15th ranked, and this is on the men's side, his 15th ranked Xavier defeated Philander Smith. Beat him up pretty good, 85-56. You have Talladega ranked number 20th in the nation. That's NAIA ranking. Was at Dillard, who's receiving votes, and Talladega showed why they're top 20 ranked team, defeating Dillard 94-68. Rust at Tougaloo. Tougaloo was receiving votes. Tougaloo defeated Rust on the men's side. You talk about the women, what's going on there, 77-70. On the women's side, just to give some updates there, you had Talladega ranked 11th in the country, defeating Dillard. That was on the road, so very solid victory, 20-point victory, 84-64 in that matchup. And then you have Edward Waters at Suno. Edward Waters got it done on the women's side, defeating Suno 73-69. So those are some scores in terms of what takes place. Some upcoming matchups. That Rust is at Lemoyne Owens College, since you've given some love there on the men's women's side, obviously. In terms of 5:30, 7:30 matchups, that's a Wednesday coming up this week. Friday matchup will feature baseball. As you said, they're kicking off. They go out of conference play. You have Edward Waters continue to play. They play Kaiser University. Saturday, you have a lot of baseball being played. Edward Waters, Tougaloo will suit up Division II SIAC fold. They'll travel to Lane to get some baseball in there. But men's basketball, you'll see Edward Waters at Talladega, men's and women's, obviously. That's top 20 ranked Talladega Tornadoes. And you have a Greek night for Rust and Philander Smith. That'll be good. Wonder if the brothers going to be out there throwing up a little bit of that ice.
Yeah, they need to.
Hey, man.
Hey,
non-hazing organization. He sound like you went throwback and got a little excited.
I know, my bad. That was old D5 coming out.
What's that brother we seen down there in Atlanta say?
Oh, yeah.
I just D5. This old stable gray hairs boy. He say D5. Y'all just won't get right. I think Charles told me he's an area director in one state.
Oh, boy.
So that was entertaining. I said, so I guess some of those stories you talk about D5 may be true.
The legend of D5, it is what it is. So.
Oh, man, I tell you, this is just, it gets interesting.
Yes,
got some updates from Gulf Coast Athletic Conference. Got anything from the SIC as well as the CIAA? Do you want to give some updates there?
Sure. Let's take a look at the standings in the SIC.
On the
men's side, we got Albany State. They check in the East. They're 10-3 in conference play. Followed right behind them is Clark and Morehouse at number 3. On the West, we got Miles. They come in at 10-2, and they're right behind them is Tuskegee at 10-3. So interesting thing with Miles, they've won 7 in a row. So
that's big.
That's big.
Miles rolling 7 in a row.
Big
Anytime you can start
Tuskegee
winning this part of the season, you like to get it in. Obviously, they're getting prepared for their tournament. You see SIAC marketing. I like the fact that they're getting that information for their tournament. Always a pretty exciting tournament in the SIAC. Unlike maybe CIAA, to some degree, the MEAC, SWAC, where you see the top teams coming out. Something about the SIAC. most recently, you had the top teams, but you do get a sneaker in there every once in a while that
Right.
finds a way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certainly significant upsets in the SIC. Even if you have a team ranked 1 or 2, finally get it done. 1, 2, 3, or 4, somebody is going out early.
Exactly.
In the SIC,
Exactly.
especially on the men's side. Sometimes you see that as well on the women's side. What about Savannah State? You know, they moved down to the MEAC in the Division II SIAC. What do you talk about Savannah State for those that kind of sneak and want to know
Bring
how
up-
Savannah State is in there? Obviously, football.
Yeah.
They made good statement.
Mhm.
Weren't eligible, but now you have Savannah State basketball, men's and women's. Any thoughts on them?
Well, they are, of course, over there in the SIC now, but this
East
season,
Division over there.
East Division, but this
Fort Valley State.
this
Albany
year it's
State.
been all about Albany, and then Clark
Okay.
following them, and then Morehouse right behind them. But very interesting over in the SIC women's side. You know, we've talked about Benedict, and Benedict, they've won 15 in a row.
Nice.
Since
They're rolling.
since a 1-point loss to Miles all the way back in
I
November.
love to give Benedict credit
But-
because they're getting it done.
You know, you got Miles sitting right there over there in the West, right 9-2. You got Tuskegee right behind Miles at 9-3. Tuskegee only a 2-point loss to Benedict January.
So the Alabama schools are getting it done in the West Division of
getting it done.
men's and women's basketball.
Very much so.
SIAC.
Mm-hmm.
I see Miles sitting up there, as you said, 10-2, 15-3 overall, and Tuskegee right behind him, 10-3, 13-7. Be interesting to see when that rematch is up. We'll see about sneaking in there and see what that looks like.
Yeah, normally we see Benedict kind of run off from him, but not so fast this year. So.
So let's get into the CIAA. What do you got for the CIAA? The old grandfather-in-law, Big Daddy Conference, one that started it all, that's still surviving today for many people.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at the CIAA, the men in the North. Virginia State, that was a huge one. They took a loss to Bowie February 1st. Double overtime loss, 86-81. And then you have Bowie right behind them, comes in at number 2 in the North. They lost to Virginia Union January 30th, 82-71. So, and then you got Virginia Union right behind Bowie sitting in 3rd place. So these teams are jockeying for position over there in the CIAA North. Very, very competitive over there in the CIAA North. Good basketball being played over there.
Certainly. Too early to talk about tournament?
A little too early to talk about tournament, but it should be a little more interesting this year because check this out. CIAA South, Winston-Salem State, they've won 7 in a row.
Oh, okay.
So they've won 7 in a row since they dropped a game back to Elizabeth City prior this past month. So right behind them is Johnson C. Smith and Claflin. But you got some teams really jockeying for position in this CIAA. Some great basketball being played. So looks like Isaiah got a breaking news for you there.
Oh man! Hey man, you go ahead and read this. I'm not gonna throw you something. You got that out there. I like that. Good catch. Do your thing. What you got for us, Isaiah?
The CIAA partners with Premium Spades for the 2020 CIAA Spades Tournament Challenge.
Nice.
Nice.
That's pretty big. College. You remember those days?
I
playing
do.
spades?
I do.
Were you any good?
I was not any good. That's why I became
I
really
saw-
good in Madden.
That's why I saw. See, you passed up real quick. He said, "Yeah, that's it."
Yeah, I you know.
Man, I used boss.
I couldn't wait.
What about dominoes?
Yeah, you might get me in dominoes and spades. I couldn't wait to get you on the sticks. Could not wait.
Ain't nobody doing nothing with no stick. 20.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Same thing we were doing in dominoes and spades. You can do it on the.
Really?
You can do it on.
You was a
that.
gamer.
Oh yeah.
You was ahead of your time. You know, you could have been a millionaire.
Well, that might have been my entryway in the alpha. So.
Oh, now we get some true
Get
hits.
good with your DP while you playing PlayStation.
A little secret to the word to the wise. Let's sneak in there and give them a little bit about the Red River Athletic Conference. You know, they have HBCUs in there. Let's see if we can get a chance to see if there's any updates. Or we can look at the Sooner Athletic Conference talking about Langston. No, last time we looked, they were struggling, so they hadn't got much love. So that may be still the same case in a lot of ways. But I thought we'd look at to see what's going on in terms of men's and women's basketball for the Red River, just to give some people some updates of what's looking at in those conference. Let me give you some scores of what's taking place there as we look at conference seating. This past Saturday, You had Jarvis Christian at LSU Alexandria. Jarvis Christian, for those that may not be aware, is the HBCU. They were playing 11th ranked LSU Alexandria. They lost 106-82. You have your Texas College. Wanted to make sure we snuck that in there. They were at 5th ranked LSU Shreveport, and unfortunately didn't go well. 110-70. Wiley College, though, big ups for the HBCU getting it done in the Red River Athletic Conference races. They were over Texas A&M, Texarkana, 68-60, and you had your HBCU matchup with Paul Quinn traveling at Houston-Tillerson. Dallas versus Austin in that type of matchup there. Houston-Tillerson, the Rams, best. The Tigers of Paul Quinn, 91-82. Just to give you some updates there. Anything you have in terms of those teams that you wanted to give a little update to in terms of what's going on there?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, everybody's kind of jockeying for position as we start to turn the calendar towards February now. You want to start to kind of be playing your best ball as you kind of ramp it up as you're getting ready for March. So these matchups are starting to get a lot more fun now, and you've kind of figured out who's who in whatever conference. I think we had talked a little earlier about North Carolina A&T making their move, but also that I happened to notice North Carolina Central making their move also. So now it's the time of the year where everybody's kind of starting to get into their rotation.
Yeah, you know where you are.
Yeah.
This is where you start to separate those that were pretending.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you certainly know who's at the bottom.
Right.
You think you know who's at the top, but you start to understand those teams in the middle, and can they jockey and reposition themselves and start moving up, like you said about North Carolina Central, and when you talk about the major division schools. But in terms of the Red River Athletic Conference, some teams to keep your eyes on. They're outside of the top 25 nationally ranked, but sitting at 3rd and 4th, which means they would get a bye in the tournament, gives them a position to maybe make a statement. You do have Houston-Tillerson, and while they have a losing record overall, which is why you hadn't heard much of them from this year, 8-13, they are 7-4 in the Red River Athletic race, which puts them in 3rd position. You have Wiley College, who's 500 overall at 8-8, but they sit at 6-4 in terms of Red River Conference, would put them in the 4th position. Down where you still have Paul Quinn, that's not eligible for postseason play this year. They're 5-20, 3-8, just to give you that. And unfortunately, the rest of the HBCUs, including Texas College and Jarvis Christian on the men's side, sitting at the bottom of the conference, both with a conference record of 2-9, just to give you some indication of what's going on in the conference setting for the HBCU programs participating in the Red River Athletic Conference. You do have HBCUs on the women's side sitting at 4-5 in terms of conference records. That is Houston-Tillerson, 4, 5, and 6, I should say. Houston-Tillerson, Paul Quinn. Wiley Paul Quinn is not eligible for postseason this year, as you see. They sit Houston-Tillerson, Paul Quinn, both at 7-4, 10-7, and 9-13 overall, respectively, for those two schools. And then you have Wiley College, the Wildcats, if you would, sitting at 6-4 and 8-9. So not in terms of your top 5 type programs or national rankings, but did want to give a little love for those programs down there near the bottom of the conference. Jarvis Christian and Texas College sitting at 2-9, 1-10, respectively. But at the bottom, not a HBCU, but Texas A&M, Texas College sitting at 0-10. So Jarvis Christian, Texas College get a chance to get a couple of wins.
Right. Exactly.
In terms of that, just to give you what's going on there in terms of those conferences. So I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned mid-major college, and I was looking up here in my notes, especially in the CIAA. I neglected to talk about the women in the CIAA in the North. Lincoln, they're having a huge season. They're 10-1.
Right. I thought you were mad at the.
I just old age, just looked over it. So, but they got past Winston-Salem.
At least we know it wasn't personal.
Right, exactly. Got past Winston-Salem in overtime, 65-59. That game was last night. That was a huge one. So Lincoln, they've won 8 in a row after a loss to Shaw going back January 4th. And then right behind them is Bowie State. Bowie State is 8-2. They lost to Lincoln on January 25th. So Bowie State's right there, and then Virginia Union is at 8-2, and they have a loss to Bowie. So these teams are really jockeying with each other in terms of supremacy over there in the CIAA North. CIAA South, Fayetteville State. They've won 4 in a row, and their last loss was to a team out of conference. They lost to Benedict. A 1-point loss to Benedict, 56-55, and behind them is Johnson C. Smith and Livingston. So a lot of great basketball being played right now.
I like that when you put that information in regards to making sure these mid-majors get some information put out there. With that, I wanted to talk about the last part we'll do in regards to mid-major programs out of Langston. The men sit near the bottom of the conference, but starting with the women, they are not faring much better. They sit at 4-8 in conference play, 6-10. So it'll be 8th place in regards to where they're sitting at. So you won't hear us talk too much about them unless they get on a great run and get up there. But we do, as we get into midterm, or at least for the major division, where we're going to spend a little more of the time there. Next up, when you talk about the mid-major divisions, the major division, you talk about halfway part of the season in regards to where they flip and start doing the second half of the season. So I wanted to give the mid-majors a lot more time during this mid. So you have Langston on the men's side, also sitting at 4-8, 11-10. So they have a winning record overall, but struggling in conference play, sitting in the 9th position in regards to that. So just wanted to get a little bit of that out there. But let's get into the major division in terms of what took place. Let's start with the women on the major division in terms of these matchups that took place. We touched on a little bit, or at least I did, with that shout out for Norfolk State Spartanettes as they went down literally, taking a road trip.
Yeah. Went
down figuratively and literally to the Aggies. What are your thoughts in terms of what took place this past weekend?
Well, you mentioned that. It's been smooth sailing thus far for Norfolk State, both men's and women, in terms of what they've been able to do. And then you come up on a big weekend, and North Carolina A&T got it done against the Spartanettes. So just a lot of great basketball being played at the major division level. You take a look at what North Carolina A&T has been able to do. They've really solidified themselves within the MEAC, really challenging Bethune-Cookman and Norfolk State. So it'll be fun coming down the stretch.
Yeah, Tennessee State is one of those teams that are struggling majorly in the OVC on the women's side. But Hampton. Hampton has won 2, 3 in a row, playing really well. I know the last 2 in terms of weekend series. We'll see if it's enough to get them ranked in the top 10. We'll do this shortly, but wanted to get in a little more of the matchups before we get into our top 5 rankings there. So let's talk about what took place Saturday in regards to, on the women's side, Hampton defeated UNC Asheville 76-66 in that matchup, and Hampton is rolling again, trying to climb up that ladder, sitting in the top 3rd of the conference at the top. In that matchup, you had Nadiria Evans and Ashley Bates kind of pounded it out. Evans for UNCA, but Bates for Hampton. 18 points, went 6 of 9. In terms of field goal, was 3 and 4. In terms of the free throw percentage, Hampton shot 48% in that game. 3-point, they shot 47%. Oddly enough, they held UNCA to 0% from the 3.
Wow.
And so you can see where that was a difference there. They also forced 11 turnovers, as Hampton only had 5. Hampton did get out rebounded in that game, but because of those turnovers, they were able to get it done in the way they shot the ball and holding UNC 0% from the 3. They got out rebounded 39-28. Just talking a little bit about that matchup as you kind of go inside the numbers at this midway point to give you a little more indication of what these teams are doing. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Get back into that MEAC about some other matchups that took place that Saturday. You had the big rivalry game between Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M. Bethune-Cookman still playing well. Obviously, we won the conference a couple of years ago in terms of what they're getting done. defeating FAMU 78-57.
Yeah.
That was in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Rolling in that. Morgan State.
On the women's side, yeah.
Yeah, on the women's side. I'm just the women. Morgan State Howard 68-52. As we talked about, North Carolina A&T taking it to Norfolk State 53-39. North Carolina Central got it done against South Carolina State, really pounding South Carolina State Bulldogs there 90-49. And Delaware State took it to Coppin State 72-55. We'll break down, if you would, a little bit in regards to what's taking place with some of those games. Any comments you have on those games before we get into the women's side for the SWAC?
Bethune-Cookman, they continue to get it done week in, week out. The women's score didn't too much surprise me. The men's score totally caught me off guard. But just talking in terms of women, I think every thing except with Norfolk State, that was the only one that kind of threw me for a loop, because I had to look back at it again. Like, wait a second, wasn't expecting that.
Arkansas Pine Bluff, Grambling ladies continue to struggle, and I guess at this point, it is what it is. They are, as we've heard in other vernaculars by Coach Green, they are who we thought they were.
Yeah, they are who. But you know what? Be careful with both of them on a Monday night.
Yeah, very true, especially at home.
Yeah,
but Arkansas Pine Bluff at home gets it done over Grambling, 84-79.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Southern takes care of business on Saturday, 65-58 over Alabama A&M. Close game, good matchup. Got it done down the stretch. Alcorn with that rivalry matchup at Southern. A lot of people, and you talked about this matchup in a way. Southern showed that Alcorn's not ready yet in terms of prime time, defeating the Braves 74-57. That's on the women's side again. And then Prairie View got it done against Alabama State. Had to go in 2 overtimes to do it. Big win to split on the road as it would be. 62-59. And then Jackson State continues to show their mettle as they continue the undefeated run in conference play, getting to the halfway mark. Starting with Saturday against Mississippi Valley, 90-61, pounding the Lady Delta Devils in that matchup, 90-61. What are your thoughts in terms of what took place on Saturday for the women's side of the SWAC?
Saturday, I tell you what, the Prairie View Alabama State game, that was a little surprising for me. I thought Prairie View would be able to go in and impose their will. But Alabama State, to their credit, gave them everything they could handle. That matchup with Southern and Alcorn, 2 upstart teams, I think, in terms of what they are able to do in the SWAC. And Southern, since dropping those first 2 on the Texas 2-step, they've gotten progressively better, and their defense is starting to really look like that Southern team from last year, where they can really play very good defense on the perimeter.
Point well taken. Go to that dangerous Monday. Let's see what took place in the SWAC in terms of what you refer as they got them Monday in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Alabama A&M at home is able to defeat Prairie View 54-44. To stay near the top of the races. They tried to make a statement. Texas Southern pounds Alabama State 81-54. I don't know if that's the right words to use now after what took place after the game, but choose my words more carefully, I guess. Jackson State over Arkansas Pine Bluff 56-44. Again, they officially in the first half 9-0.
Yeah.
That's a statement in itself.
Yeah.
In regards to the run, it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do in the second half with what we believe will be the suspensions. You think it's going to probably last over one game, so you're Texas Southern going against the rival Prairie View.
Yeah. But
really where that may become intriguing is you had Jackson State returning that trip the following Saturday.
Right.
Essentially, the following weekend, almost 2 weeks from now, if you would. Where you basically thought you were going to have a
first place
showdown, and now you have one team that may not have the set of players. Obviously, we need to wait to see what the SWAC and potentially what Texas Southern may do themselves in regards. Is this just a one-game type of suspension? Obviously, what you've seen, I don't believe that would be the case, which means you could have potentially Texas Southern losing to Prairie View. And then if they lose to Jackson State, they're basically out of the running for a team that looked like they had a chance at a championship run in terms of the regular season. So your decisions can really go a long way in costing you in terms of what you have worked all off season for.
Right.
So you got to find a way to keep your emotions. Again, you have Mississippi Valley State getting it done against Grambling, which I think is surprising a lot of folks, as the women defeat Grambling 68-57. You talk about that Monday. I don't know about the women's side. When Valley finds a way, gets it done.
Right.
Let me jump in here and get some of the MEAC stuff on the women's side before I let you chime in to either side of those you may want to.
Mm-hmm.
Norfolk State gets a bit of revenge as they get it done 83-75 over Norfolk State. You have Howard over Coppin State 64-52, Delaware State over Maryland Eastern Shore 72-58, and North Carolina A&T, the Aggies on the women's side defeat South Carolina State 66-55. So those are your scores going into that side of the standings, if you would. What are your thoughts on any of those games and matchups?
Well, the unfortunate part with Texas Southern Alabama State is, and I think you touched on it, is it could potentially have kind of tipped the balance of power to Jackson State. To Jackson State's credit,
You don't sound too upset.
well, no. But I mean, to Jackson State's credit, that UAPB game was one that I was taking a look at very closely because I thought UAPB matches up pretty well with Jackson
really?
State, and especially after what I saw them do against Texas Southern, where they just fought back and really made that game much closer than it could have been. So I was really curious about the UAPB game with Jackson State, but to Jackson State's credit, they got that game won. I was looking forward to this weekend, of course, the Texas Southern Prairie View. In terms of that matchup, always a huge matchup. So we'll just kind of have to see what happens with the potential of the suspensions and whatnot.
Let me close it out with the records. I'm just going to give the top teams in terms of the MEAC, if you would. Norfolk State and Cookman are tied at 7-1 in the conference race. We'll give you the overall record when we get into the power rankings for the top five. Right behind them is Morgan State and A&T that are tied, both tied at 7-2. And then in terms of the loss column, you have Delaware State sitting in the fifth spot in the conference race thus far, but they've only played 7 games, so they're 5-2. Just to give you some indication of what's taking place in the MEAC. So it'll be interesting down the stretch. You got a bump there. People are going to have to work their way through it. Solid play in terms of conference race, but you see the teams at the top. In the SWAC, you have a little more spread. Not as many teams are fighting at the top at this point, the midway mark. Again, you have Jackson State sitting at 9-0, Texas Southern sitting at 8-1. That classic matchup, first time, and Jackson went to overtime in terms of that contest. So I hate to see that we may not see both teams, at least Texas Southern, I should say, in full strength. But
Right.
Southern says not to be
so
a problem.
right.
We're sitting
Whatever.
at 7-2. They're
Exactly.
2 games back.
Mhm.
But they do have Alcorn and Southern at home. They have Jackson State, obviously, in their rematch as well themselves. So it'll be interesting. Can they at least make it interesting for those teams? Rest of the teams, Alabama A&M, Alcorn State, are sitting 4 games back,
Yeah.
both with 4 losses, as they both end the first half of the season at 5-4, just to give you some indication of what's going on there in regards to those races. Let's get into a little bit of the men's side in terms of the program. Told you a little bit about Hampton in terms of what they're doing, so we'll give you their overall record in terms of what's going on with the Lady Hampton. I don't want to leave them out before we get into me. They're sitting in second place, 8-3, so they deserve some love there. 2 games back as Campbell is 10-1. To let you see what's going on. So the HBCU Hampton Lady Pirates sit at number 2 in the Big South, playing some good basketball. Again, we'll give you their overall record in terms of what they're doing when we do the top 5. In terms of some of those matchups in regards to what took place this past weekend on the men's side, open up the show a little bit when we talked about what Aggies were able to get done amazingly in a lot of ways for a lot of people, what they did that Saturday. But you had your matchups in terms of what's taking place in the Big South, as you also have the Hampton men making a little move, winning some games there. Obviously, Tennessee State is playing really well as they've won 2 straight big wins, including an overtime win. It looks like they were knocking at the door of a loss in that matchup. I happened to watch it where they literally gave away a 3-point shot, fouling the guy late in the game on the 3-point line, time running out, and he's like, why are you even close to this guy? Tough call. He did foul him when they looked at the replay. You were thinking in the game, bang, bang, you don't call it. He goes to the line, hits all 3. You're like, man, it's a tough way to lose. It's over. They were leading for a lot of the game. Couldn't get it done. They executed perfectly. Inbound pass, 3/4 of the court. Guy catches in the air, has time to touch it, pass it to the guy to 3. He's ready to go, sets up 3 on the south line, outside, about 2-3 feet outside, really deep, so the defender couldn't get there. Shoots a shot. Doesn't call glass. Hey, but in the record book, this 3 is tied to an overtime.
Exactly.
They get it done in overtime, so credit to Tennessee State as they're rolling. We'll see what that means in terms of their play, in terms of those matchups. But Saturday score, you had Hampton defeating Presbyterian. It went to overtime, 87-81 in terms of that matchup. Some of your scores in the MEAC this past weekend, outside of what we told you already with North Carolina A&T defeating Norfolk State. I know the Spartan fans are like, man, how many times are you going to repeat this? It's a big game, 74-68. Not my fault. Y'all could have got it done. North Carolina Central at home defeats South Carolina State 73-56. Morgan State, if you would, they go on the road and defeat Howard 89-83. You have FAMU at home defeating Bethune-Cookman, you were alluding to, 73-67. Close matchup, entertainment. In a lot of ways, you have Delaware State talking about what's going on there in that matchup, defeating Coppin State 77-68. Coppin State is one of those teams that got 4 Division I as the men, but in conference play, boy, they just cannot get it done in any fashion of the way. So it's interesting in terms of what's going on there. In terms of the SWAC, what took place in the SWAC? Jackson State over Mississippi Valley State, 85-65. Valley is struggling. That loss to Alabama A&M will be interesting in terms of how that comes out at the end of the season. Will it be a difference in terms of who gets in the tournament? It'll be interesting to see you talk about that. Southern over Alcorn State in that rivalry matchup.
That was
big
huge,
win.
Huge.
Both teams were needing that win to solidify their position in third place. Both teams were playing really well.
5-game winning streak.
No, it's 6 for Southern.
Yeah, 6
well,
for Southern.
5. You're right. Going into that
game,
and Southern gets it, so they're on that official 6th win. Talking about losing your first 3 games and winning 6 straight.
How about that?
Pretty impressive there in terms of that, especially a way to finish the first half of the season, 6-3. Texas Southern on Saturday wins 82-73. Prairie View loses to Alabama State 52-49. Struggled the whole game. Do what they do. They find a way. It looks like they were going to pull it out late in the game. 5 minutes left. And they go on a stretch where they can't score.
Right.
Credit to Alabama State. And scoring themselves. And you think, oh, wow, Prairie View just gave a golden opportunity as they're going to face off against Texas Southern. You thought that game was going to be for first place. Maybe not so much. Prairie View still could make a statement in that game. But lo and behold, on Monday, Texas Southern gives it right back, and we'll get those scores quickly here. Grambling State over Arkansas Plate. Then Monday Madness, as you said, Grambling over Arkansas Pine Bluff, 49-47. Nip and tuck in that matchup. Fascinating to see what went on there. I want to give you that score in terms of Tennessee State. As we talked about what took place in their overtime, giving you some updates there. Tennessee State wins the game 72-67 in overtime. Told you about the end of that matchup. In terms of what's going on in terms of that. So it'll be interesting to see where are we going in a lot of ways there. In terms of Monday, give you some updates in terms of SWAC play. We alluded to it a little bit. Monday scores, Prairie View over Alabama A&M 69-54. Good bounce back win. You mean you split on the road. Grambling State over Mississippi Valley 90-65. Jackson State makes a statement with a big win, keep themselves at least in the middle of the pack, 49-45. Seems like every time you want to put dirt over the Tigers,
every time
they stay right in the middle, at least teasing you and seeing
they put a straw in their mouth.
Alabama State 79-55, pounding Texas Southern. Probably the biggest loss of the season. It surprised a lot of people. Not in terms of the loss, maybe you probably didn't expect that, but certainly the way they lost 79-55 was just something I don't think anybody would have thought about. But credit to Alabama State coach. Always finds a way to make it interesting, get it done there. On the men's side, North Carolina Central 69-63, Coppin State 64-56, Maryland Eastern Shore 68-66. North Carolina A&T shows that the Saturday win was not an accident, as they closed out the first half of the season on a nice run, winning 78-63 in terms of what takes place there. What were your thoughts in terms of the matchups here going on, if you would?
First and foremost, with North Carolina A&T, they've won 9 out of their last 10, 5-game win streak. Huge win this past weekend. North Carolina Central, right behind them in the conference at 6-2. They've won 7 out of their last 10. They got a 3-game win streak. So huge wins for both A&T and Central. Taking a look at Tennessee State, 8-1 at home. The only loss that they had at home was at Eastern Kentucky. Crucial stretch coming up for them. They're 4th in the OVC. They're looking up at Austin Peay and Murray State. Both teams come into Nashville this upcoming week. February 6th is Austin Peay. They're 10-0 in conference play. Murray State's 10-0 in conference play as well. And then next week they have Belmont. Of course, Belmont's in Nashville as well. So all 3 games, all 3 teams that are in front of Tennessee State, those games will be in Nashville. So it's a crucial stretch for Tennessee State Tigers.
Great point when you bring that up in terms of can they make that next step. Played solid all year, winning record in regards overall. Also taking their little lumps and bumps when they had the losing streak, getting and righting the ship. But can they make that next step in terms of elevating themselves in the top part of the conference?
Right.
So it'll be fascinating to watch over the next 2 weeks. We'll give you those updates on the men's side.
Quick stats. They have 5-6 guys that are average in double figures.
I really like the way they played the post game too. They spread the ball around, so a lot of scores. It's hard to just pick somebody that you're going to focus on taking them out the game because they spread the ball. They are one of the few teams that you see playing the post. They dip it down, and they really want to go in the paint, slow the game up. They will get out and run, and, boy, when they do fly, they can fly. But they like to go down in the post, which you don't see happening a lot more at really any of the levels,
Right, that's true.
particularly in college. But
Play
it's interesting.
perimeter now.
As you talked about the standings, before I give you this top 5 poll rankings, standings, you alluded to where Tennessee State was there. Talk about Hampton, where they are in the Big South. Talked about them obviously sitting in 3rd position, 3 games back. Winthrop is sitting at 10-0, even teams that are ahead of them. Radford 8-2, Hampton obviously HBCU in the Big South sit at 5-3, 10-11 overall. Just to give you some indication of what's taking place there, as we gave you the update of where Tennessee State was. North Carolina A&T now in sole position of first place. Tell me that you have not heard that before about A&T in one of the sports. North Carolina Central, though, the rivalry is back on the basketball hardwood, sitting at 6-2. Can't wait until that matchup takes place again. As Aggies got it done early, can North Carolina Central get a little revenge and maybe make it closer at the top there? Norfolk State, as we talked about, lost 2 straight. They're 6-2. Again, we'll give you those overall records in terms of the top 3. Just sitting back there, a little bit surprised some people in conference race. Morgan State sitting at 6-3 to give you some indication. Like I said, we'll give you the overall record for those teams that are in the top 5 to give you some indication. But on the SWAC side, you have Texas Southern PV sitting at 7-2 as they come to Prairie View for the second half of the showdown to kick off the second part of the season. It'll be a fascinating one to watch.
Right.
Both teams want this. They want to start the second part of their leg at the top of the conference race. Prairie View needs this a little more than TSU in terms of this season in regards to that, because they lost the first leg.
Right.
And so you want to look at
take care of home.
Take care of home and that head-to-head matchup when we talk about in a lot of ways going on there. Behind them is 6-3, Alcorn both at 6-3 in terms of the race. Give you some indication of what's take place there in top 4 teams. Top 5 teams in the women's mid-major sitting outside of the poll receiving votes. Hampton Lady Pirates sitting at 12-8, 8-3. They can't crack the top 5 because those teams up there are getting it done in a lot of ways. Let me know your thoughts. North Carolina A&T State Aggies 15-6, 7-2. Remain number 5. Excuse me. At number 4, Bethune-Cookman Lady Wildcats sit at 15-5, 7-1. They do drop 1 spot. They retain 1 first-place vote, as you saw what they did this past weekend. Number 3, Norfolk State Spartanettes sit at 13-8, 7-1. 2 first-place votes, 80 points. 1 previous ranked 1 So we will have a new number 1 team this week. At number 2, Texas Southern Tigers sit at 13-7, 8-1 as they get it done. But we'll see what all the things come out. Can they maintain that ranking? 3 first-place votes, 92 points. Previous ranked 4 with the win, because this is what talk about what they did on the court. They move up 2 spots. Bringing us to number 1. SWAC dominating in a lot of ways. In terms of top spots, but more MEAC teams in the top 5. You have Jackson State Lady Tigers at 11-8 winning record, 9-0 in terms of the conference race. The only undefeated conference team left now, if you would. 4 first place votes, 105 points. Previous ranked 2, they scratch it and get it done in terms of the top of the polls. What do you say about the women's top 5 ranking?
I can't say enough about Jackson State and Coach Tamika Reed in terms of what
like
she's.
You're proud of you.
I'm proud. But a tremendous first half of the season for Jackson State Lady Tigers in terms of what they've been able to do. Misha Williams playing center has been tremendous help, especially on the defensive end with Marnisha Hamer. Defensively, they really get after you, and now they have the guard play. I think that can really take them a long way in terms of this second half of the season leading into the tournament. So Jackson State Lady Tigers, they've been very impressive. Again, like I said, we'll see in the second half of the season what happens potentially with the suspensions, whether it does tip the balance of power fully into Jackson State's hands.
What up, world? It's your boy Rob Calloway, host of the HBCU Report, and right now you're inside the HBCU Sports Lab with my guy, all hail the dean of HBCU Sports. You know I named him that. Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, my guy. What's happening, man?
Before we got into the men's report and close out the show, I thought it was important to make sure that everybody knew. Oh, never mind.
Oh, wow.
So, popping out this week, rat-a-tat-tat, Norfolk State Spartans drop out of the top 5 with 2 straight games. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Norfolk State does receive votes, sitting at 10-13, 6-2, 51 points. Southern Jaguars sit at 9-13, 6-3 in conference rate with 42 points. So that'll give you some indication there. At number 5, hey, you got excited. You ready to go, man? Dang.
Computer has a mind of its own sometimes.
Wow. Number 5, jumping into the polls, North Carolina Central Eagles sitting 10-12 overall, 6-2 in conference rate, 56 points. Bring us number 4, Prairie View A&M Panthers, 11-11, 7-2. A 1 first place vote. We talked about that tough loss, but they go in with the chance of Texas Southern in the SWAC race, 63 points. Number 3 is Texas Southern Tigers, 10-12, 7-2, 1 first place vote, 82 points, previous rank 1. They sit at the number 1 spot for 1 week, and they give it up. At number 2, Tennessee State Tigers, 14-9, 6-4. At number 3, 93 points. Previous rank 4, they move all the way back up to number 2. And remember, they were number 1 all the time at Texas Southern before Texas Southern took over. But we got us a new number 1 team this week. It's North Carolina A&T State Aggies, sit at 12-12, 8-1. 4 first place votes with 101 points. Previous rank 5. They jump all the way from 5 to number 1.
Wow.
Based on everybody else losing the game this week besides Tennessee State that was at 4. They find a way to jump over Tennessee State with the win over previous top-ranked Norfolk State Spartans. And so let me know your thoughts on this poll rankings. Your nose is up, so what you got to say there?
No, really impressed by North Carolina A&T. They've won 5 in a row. They won 9 out of their last 10. No team is hotter than they right now. Keep an eye. I saw on this other receiving votes. Keep an eye on the Southern Jaguars. They're the number 1 defensive team in the SWAC. They really get after you on the defensive side of the ball, both men and women. So both of them after a shaky start in SWAC play, they've seemed to right the ship, both men's and women's teams. So I think you got some good teams right here.
Thank you.
You got a 3-4 matchup this weekend. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Top 3, top 5,
Yeah.
3-4 matchups in the SWAC. Who's going to hold it down? At the Baby Dome.
It's going to be a good one.
Better be there early.
Yes.
Dr. Ville's Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, presented by Amber Slaughter, the project architect. As we close the show, Amber Slaughter, the project architect, where they handle the project planning, project development, project execution, and team management, so you can run your business. Contact Amber Slaughter, the project architect, at www.theprojectarchitect.com to schedule an appointment. That's www.theprojectarchitect.com. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, as you heard, the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports. Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop as we come to a close. Hope you enjoyed our lecture today and giving you the update and latest on your MEAC and SWAC basketball programs, just giving you some indication of what's taking place there. Just wanted to give a little more shout out. Thanks for all those that tuned in to see what we had to say today. Appreciate the love. Keep giving this to us as we continue to do it more and more. Chuck Hunt, Lonnie Shaw. Lonnie says, great show. Mark Bailey's jumped in there talking about that Aggie pride. Jamal mentioned, say Aggies. Amos Fawcett, Pound Pride. Jamal mentioned, yeah, they coming in. Aggies, yeah, y'all kicking some tail. Just give you a little shout out and much love. With that, again, want to thank you for listening to Dr. Ville's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is on assignment. He's still with us. We want to give him love. He just says he's doing some work. I don't know. I hadn't seen the travel bag yet, but we'll let him make it. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavill, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, DrKenyattaCavil. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon.
Course lecture dismissed.